Good evening and welcome to Anime-Zing Radio here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm your host, Doug Engler. Joining me in the co-host seat, as always, is our good friend, Mr. Darren Starling.
Hello.
Angela will be joining us in a little bit. This is her game night, the weekend where she goes and has her D&D campaign. So she will be joining us in a little bit as she leaves her gaming. But we have an amazing guest that's joining us tonight. Really excited to welcome the Pop Cult Anime Convention Con Chair Hemlock Inks to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as a reminder, we want everybody to know that we are sponsored tonight by Home Circle Media. For the latest and greatest in anime gear, check out homecirclemedia.com today or look for them at an upcoming convention near you. We're also sponsored by Casey Fox. For all of your artwork, photography, and cosplay needs, be sure to check out Casey Fox. That's KAYCIFOXX on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Again, thank you, Hemlock, for joining us tonight. And we're excited to learn more about Pop Cult Anime Convention. It's a con that I know about, but unfortunately scheduling never allowed me to attend. And so I'm interested in learning more about Pop Cult and what you guys offer.
Sure. So we are a 2-day plus multi-genre multi-genre anime pop culture convention. So we have everything that you would find at like a big boy like Anime Boston. But obviously 2 days, we pack a full schedule of panels and workshops in, and just a smaller crowd, so we're a lot less overwhelming, but we try to have as much bang for the buck as we possibly can. So again, we have like all the normal things you'd find at a convention, plus a few things that are like unique to us. So we have like tabletop video games, masquerade AMV contests, but we also do kind of unique things as well. Like we have our artist cafe where you can go in and sit down with one of our convention artists and just draw and chat with an artist and learn some tips and tricks. We have our paint and take where we actually have they're actually the Reaper miniatures, and we have a pro artists come in and sit with people. So we have a room dedicated to that. We're going back this year where we're going to do ball jointed doll panels and workshops again. We've done in the past, we've actually had blanket fort building, and unfortunately we had to put that on hold because of the pandemic, but we're trying to bring that back in. So again, everything that you'd find at any other large anime or Comic-Con convention, just smaller 2-day package, and of course we have this beautiful hotel, the Westin Waltham in Waltham, Massachusetts.
And if I remember correctly, when you started out, you were out in Framingham.
Yep, we did start 2016 at the Sheridan in Framingham, which is the castle. Unfortunately, the pandemic just kind of threw a monkey wrench in everything, and we ended up having to move, which, unfortunate, but we do like our new hotel. It's a little easier to get to with public transportation and being right off Route 95. And then, of course, they've been able to give us like a really good deal on the hotel room. And, so it's worked out really well. There's still a Dunkin' Donuts within walking distance.
That's the important thing for any true Mass resident, I'm native from Massachusetts, born and raised in Mass. When I get coffee, it's got to be Dunkies. I don't do Starbucks.
So there's a Starbucks sort of option in the hotel where they have like some Starbucks products, but the Dunkin' Donuts is very easily within walking distance. So
I will say
we're going to also give them a heads up to let them know that we're going to be there for the weekend so they can make sure they have extra staff.
That's a good thing. What were you going to say, Darren?
I was just laughing along with that because I know how it is. Because whenever we have a convention of any kind, going to any of the local places near the convention center is generally line out the door around lunchtime, and 9 times out of 10, it's 90% attendees.
I will tell you my tips and trick for Anime Boston. I actually often get my lunch at Dunkin' Donuts because I will eat breakfast food at any time of the day. So,
Well,
and they have their system down pat. That Dunkin' Donuts right by the
Oh,
Heinz.
they
They
do.
they know what they're doing after all these years. So I often go there for like lunch and snacks.
I will say the
mm,
ramen place in the little mall there uh was very fast on the Saturday that I went out.
Wagamama?
Yeah,
Yep.
Wagamama. They were very like there wasn't really a line when I went to get lunch, and got in, sat down, placed the order pretty quick, and they were right on the ball. And I have to get Wagamama when I go
Yeah,
to Anime Boston.
we went one night as well, and I will say that the Shake Shack was pretty cool. We did their online ordering, so we were able to order uh, everything we needed online, pay, and then just go pick it up as soon as it was ready. So that saved us
A lot of
time
time.
in line.
Now, as the con chair for Pop Cult, how long have you been doing that? Where are you the one who started Pop Cult, or
Yeah.
was there progression up to it?
No, I am the founder as well. So Pop Cult Anime as a business has been around for a lot longer because I started over 10 years ago selling buttons in artist alleys. And I did that for like over almost a decade and also staffed and things like that. But it got to a point where it was very difficult to get into artist alleys. So I decided to stop selling buttons, but I still wanted to be involved with anime conventions. And I saw a niche in the market in the greater Boston area for a small convention because obviously we have Anime Boston, which is a great big show, lots of great guests, people from Japan, they bring in the huge vendors and all this great stuff, but it's also very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Boston is expensive.
mm,
So we decided that, what, we could be a small convention later in the year, after people have had a chance to like save up a little money again, and we would be only 2 days, but we would be more affordable. So, and we still are one of the more affordable conventions. So right now it's only $45 for the whole weekend. And when you pre-register for the weekend, you also get programming on Friday night. So we're kind of like a 2+ day convention at this point. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
And I know this year it was really crazy for the first because I think they had three big events in 5 or 6 weeks between PAX East. 2 weeks later was Anime Boston, and I think 2 weeks after that was Wicked Comic Con. So and
Yeah.
that was all within like a 5 or 6 weeks time frame. And
Yeah, no, and if you wanna go to all the events, it can be very pricey, and, not everyone, especially in the younger target market, has this disposable income. So, you know, as a working adult, I don't have to worry about that, but I do know that my audience, that our attendees don't always, have the disposable income all the time. So again, we wanted to give ourselves some time between, Anime Boston. Of course, by the end of the summer, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I wish there was a convention I could go to," and Anime Boston was so long ago, and stuff like that. So we thought August was a good time frame. We kind of bill ourselves as the end of summer convention, so kind of like the last little fun weekend before you have to go back to school. Um, and then again, which is why we always try to be either in the last weekend or the third weekend of August. Though it has made us bump up against Fan Expo. Uh, it's a Comic Con, which is a little different, but it is always worrying when you're competing with such a big show.
What's the average attendance for y'all's convention for the weekend?
Well, we started back in 2016, so 2020 was supposed to be our year 5, right? And we were so excited. We had just had 2019 was a great year for us. We had almost 800 people, and we were gonna like break the 1,000 mark for 2020. And then of course we had to have the time skip. because of COVID. So when we got back just last year to having the convention again, we unfortunately didn't grow, but we didn't lose any people. So we were still around the 800, attendee mark for the whole weekend. We don't do turnstile; we do by total tickets sold because we do have day only tickets as well. So we're still, we're holding steady, but this year we've done a lot more marketing events and we're just trying to get the word out because, we have plenty of space in the West End so we could easily accommodate, 2,000 people. So we're really hoping to, kick things back up and get over that 1K mark this year.
I wish you the best of luck. I hope you can do it. Personally, I prefer the small to medium sized conventions. I find them to be more entertaining. You're able to talk with people more. You don't feel as rushed in or as crowded in Artist Alley, the vendors room. For the small to medium conventions that have guests, you're able to spend more time talking to the guests in an autograph line or a Q&A panel, as opposed to something like Anime Boston, where 90% of the attendants may never get an autograph because the lines are too long, or they're in a pan waiting for 2 hours in line to get into a panel or something. So, the smaller conventions, definitely, I find them more enjoyable. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to get out to Pop Cult. I'm going to have to wait to see what my schedule looks like after the move coming up in a month or so.
Well, again, it's August 26th through the 27th, so you have a little time. So to figure it out. But yeah, as you were saying, smaller conventions are a lot less overwhelming. They're great places, for small groups of friends to meet up and hang out. And again, to get everything that you get out of a big convention, just, on a smaller scale. No lines. I can say that for us. We don't really have lines. So
And for people who'd be interested in applying for Artist Alley, what is some of the processes for that? Is it a juried? Is it first come, first serve? I know having a wife who's an artist, I know there's many different varieties of getting into an Artist Alley. So I was curious as to any artists out there who may be tuning in and interested in pop cult, what would be some of the process that they'd have to look for?
So we have a combo. So we have an exhibitors hall where we both have vendors and artists all in one room. And right now we have like over 30 vendors and artists. So they are vetted. So it is a juried process. Obviously, we've already, gone through that process right now and we're on the waiting list right now. So if anyone ends up, not being able to show up or um, if we have extra tables or whatever, we are pulling from the waiting list right now. We usually start the application process around February and March, and then our exhibitor staff will, go through all the entrants, and they have obviously a list of criteria that they go through and select the artists that they think will best appeal to our market. And I can say one thing because they were telling me about this. Following the directions is very important because unfortunately, when you get so many people that apply, you have to find a way to whittle that list down. And if you've, like miss something that is required, that's a really easy way to get yourself knocked off. So we always tell people, read the directions thoroughly, take advantage of asking questions or the, frequently asked questions page on our website, and just make sure you have, a really good overview of, all the work that you do in your portfolio. An online portfolio is very important, even if it's just a simple website or, like DA. Do people still use DeviantArt?
I
I
I
still have
think
mine.
so.
Yeah, like even if it's a DeviantArt link, at least it's, has a selection of like all that you do and obviously taking a photo of your setup, your table setup is really useful. Even if it's just a dry run where you get a 6-foot table in your living room and you set it up how you want to have everything displayed and take a photo. That's always important to share with the jury selection committee. So hopefully that's some useful information for anyone
I
who's watching.
I think it is because you mentioned some things in there that I don't think I'd heard of before with like sending in the photo submissions of the table set up previously, and I know a lot of artists, a lot of talented artists who can get into places at ease, and other people who I view them just as talented who struggle. And like you said, I think a lot of times when preparing for conventions, regardless of the size, I think there are some people out there who skim through the instructions and do what they think is right. So whatever the case may be, I'm not saying all artists do that, but I'm sure that you have seen some interesting, or your staff has seen some interesting examples of people who did not read the rules thoroughly.
It's too bad, because it's not that we don't wish everyone well and want them to not have like an equal opportunity of getting in, but it's important to follow instructions. And we try to, make sure everything's as clear as possible. And if people do have questions, we have people available to answer those questions. But again, it's really important to just make sure you're reading everything, you're understanding everything, you're getting everything in for a juried show. And honestly, the more information you can provide, the better. Especially, if, again, like a photo of your setup, because that's important. Like, we want, if we're trying to fill a room, we want somebody that's going to have a nice display, that's put some thought into it, that shows that they're professional and they care about what they do and what they're selling. And then also we want to see like samples of what they are selling. Don't just show us your art, show us, are you selling keychains, are you selling buttons, are you selling prints, pins, what are you selling, what are you offering? All of that is important information, you know especially for a juried show. And unfortunately, with where we have a limited space, you know we only have so many opportunities. So I really hope people, when they're applying, they're giving themselves the best shot at it by including as much information as they can.
Oh yeah. And for our viewers out there who are interested in finding out more information, you can check out their website at popcultanimecon.com. I have it pulled up here. Looking at some of the links that you have up, you have some quick links. You have an idol festival.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. um, yeah, on Sundays it's our big event. We have like a 2-hour extravaganza where we have probably over a dozen idol groups that come up. They, can perform. It's also nice because it's not a competition. It's just a showcase. So there's not pressure that you have to compete against anyone. So, it's actually very nice because everybody's, helping each other out. And then Suzumi Paradise is the group that actually runs it. So they're a great group of girls. There's like 9 of them total.
Yep,
So it's a
we
big
had
group.
them on. We had them on the show. I think a few months after Anime last year.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
Got to meet them there.
yeah, no, they're a great group. They run a really great event. I'm really glad that they're working with us. It's been a few years now, and idols, like, who knew it was gonna be such a big thing? I mean, even Anime Boston last year, like, or excuse me, this year, their theme was idols. So it's pretty cool, and we're glad that we can keep doing it with them. So
Oh yeah, I'm sure, and like the idol culture really. Hatsune Miku is kind of a start, and she's still a popular idol icon. But I think it really took off with shows like Love Live and um, stuff like that.
yeah, I was just double checking the date. Yeah, so if people are interested in signing up for the idols, they have until the end of June. So, but yeah, no, in
There you
fact,
go,
there's
Darren. You can sign up as an idol.
no,
You could be your
actually,
Nico.
you know what though? There are idol groups, like male idol groups, and I wish we could, like, have some more diversity, because the girls are obviously very popular, but there's quite a few anime shows based on male idols. So, we'd welcome male groups as well. So it would be great. You should do it.
I don't think you could get him up from North Carolina.
That would be a drive. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, it ain't so much the drive, it's my schedule. A lot of these things happen during my busy month. I can't forego 60, 70 customers to go up for a couple of days during the peak season.
Yeah, that is tough when it's summer too. The Natsumi's Book of Friends, I actually really like yokai-based anime. Yu Yu Hakusho, of course, is a near and dear favorite. So it was mostly just because I found out it was an anime based on yokai. So I was like, I gotta watch it. I love it too. It's great anime.
Inuyasha.
Inuyasha.
I get so many comments about this hat. It's great. They see a 45-year-old guy wearing a hat with ears, they have to say something. It's wonderful.
I need more anime hoodies. Most everything I have anime wise is t-shirts.
And good evening, John. I hope you're having a wonderful night. Hello to everybody who's viewing. If you want to, feel free to comment in the chats. If you have questions for us or our guests, please feel free to ask. We love the interaction, as you guys know. And now, making the jump from being a vendor to deciding to create Pop Cult Anime Con, what was that process like for you?
Well, it did have a little bit to do with kind of how the treatment of artists was, or in some places still is, at anime conventions. So it was very frustrating to be like pretty much a vendor and not get kind of the same treatment as the vendors in the vendors room. It was very frustrating. Um, again, I saw, as I was saying, I had seen an opening, in the market anyway. I really like anime conventions. I'm a very good, I think, event planner. So it was just something that I was like, well, you know what? I can't really vend anymore. I've always wanted to staff and do things anyway. I have the opportunity, the time, the money to invest. Let me go ahead and just launch, because after, 20 years now, and my first anime convention was Anime Boston back in 2003. I built up a pretty good network of friends and contacts, and I've had some unique experiences staffing, and of course being an artist vendor, and it just worked out really well. So, but yeah, a part of it was that something it was just I always wanted to do anyway because I have my own way of doing things, and then part of it was too is that I couldn't be a vendor anymore, and I did have some issues with how, artists and vendors were treated at other conventions. So it's just kind of one of those things where I'm like, if I'm going to do it, do it now. I did have a couple of friends that were kind of like, yes, do it, we'll help you. And that kind of helped push me over the edge as well. Cause when you have somebody like at your back going, let's get this done, it does help push you over the edge and make
That
that leap.
that is awesome that you had a good support group out there. Because I've talked to many different convention promoters and owners and stuff, and I've had people ask me, you do a podcast, you like anime, why don't you do your own convention? And every time I talk to somebody about their experiences, everybody says, don't do it. That you don't need the stress. But I know that there's rewards on top of, like, it's stressful leading up to it, but if you can see a fan base of happy people who have come and had a good time and stuff, I've heard that it makes it worth it.
It's funny that you bring that up about the whole don't do it. When I was, getting started doing my research about somebody must have written up, how to start an anime convention. That was kind of what I ran into too, where people are like, "Oh, you want to start an anime convention? Don't do it." And I'm like, "That's not helpful at all." So I would say to people, it's not, if you're interested in starting a fan type event, maybe not necessarily an anime convention, maybe it's just a 1 day, gaming event or something like that, or an actual full blown anime convention, like you have to have experience, right? Like you can't go in blindly. Um, I think that's one of the reasons why some of the more infamous conventions actually failed, like DashCon, is that, they were started by people that, yes, they were probably could have done it if they had people that actually knew what they were doing and had experience. So, it's not don't start a convention, it's get some experience first, then start a convention.
And there are cons out there that have failed, even though they've had, a convention can be a very tricky thing. You have to find the right, you know, niche. You have to find the right location. I know multiple people who have tried to start conventions in Vermont and they didn't last very long. 2, 3, 4 years. Bakuretsu's been going for a while, and that's a con that I absolutely love. Sad I'm not going to be able to make it this year, probably because of working for a railroad, but um, excited that they're finally coming back since for the first time since the pandemic. I know there was Vermont Comic Con that only lasted about 5 years. And there was some stuff behind the scenes, which is why the owner of that got out of doing conventions and moved down south. Uh, I know
Like you
Vermont
have
gatherings.
You have to do market research. Like, you can't think of an anime convention as just like, "Oh, some fun thing I'm gonna do." It is a business, it's an event, you have to do some market research, and I can see where, depending on where you're located in Vermont, you might just not have enough actual people around to be able to attend. You would have to have it located in one of the more popular populous cities, or near an area where that there's going to be fans and stuff. I mean, for us, we're in the greater Boston area, so we have a big, there's a large population, and there's going to be, a lot of anime fans, in the greater Boston area and further out New England who will travel. Um, Vermont's a little tough.
It, especially for the new con. This year's only Rail City's second year, but the owner of it has a good head on his shoulders. His staff was amazing last year. We worked with him last year. And for a first year con in St. Albans, Vermont, way up north, they had a really good turnout for a con that nobody really knew of. And so I was excited to be able to work with them again this year. And from the sounds of it, you have many years of experience between attending, vending, and now running a convention. Has it been kind of crazy when you sit back and think about all the years you've been around conventions to see just how popular the conventions have gotten, and there's so many cons out there now?
In a way, it's very nice that things have kind of gotten mainstream, because I remember when I was in high school, or younger, that I think the 2 animes that I ever really got to know anything about was Sailor Moon and, oh shoot, what was the other one? Something about samurais.
Samurai Champloo, Samurai,
No, Ronin
Samurai.
Warriors. Ronin Warriors, that's what it was.
Okay.
The horrible English dub, or yes. So I'm glad now that people have had Toonami and Crunchyroll and stuff like that, because I love it, so I want more of it. So it's nice that now I don't have to rent VHS tapes from some random shop in Harvard Square anymore. Just to get something.
No more
Um,
Blockbuster videos in the back corner that says anime, and there's like 5 dusty copies.
I remember watching Gundam Wing on VHS tape. So yeah,
That's
no, I'm glad that it's more mainstream, but unfortunately, that what kind of comes with that too is that we're not quite the small tight knit community that we used to be. So things have changed a lot. So you kind of have to keep up with the audience and what the audience wants, and the anime style has changed. There's a lot more kawaii kind of art, and things like that. Our theme this year is isekai, so that's become a very popular genre.
there we go,
Um,
Doug.
There we go.
Oh, the timing of that.
And
That's
we would like to
perfect
welcome
timing.
Angela to the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
The Isekai hater herself has arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't say it's not.
so our theme this year is actually Journey into Isekai, and we've actually created some comics and all kinds of fun little stories, actually, which we just loaded up the first episode on our website. So if people are interested in that, we're going to have a little storyline going, which will hopefully wrap up by the time Pop Cult actually rolls around in August. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, no, we're it's funny because again, we're all anime geeks and fans ourselves. So a lot of what we do is because it's amusing to us. Like we came up with isekai as a theme. We have all these great mascots. They all have their own interesting characters, and we have a really great artist who actually is good with comics. So we're like, let's go crazy. So our
We're
theming
going isekai. We'll bring Megaman out.
there you go. So yeah, so we decided, let's go all out again. Marketing, the comics are part of marketing. So, we're just trying to get more eyes on us and see, have people check out what we're doing and hopefully come to the convention and have a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, but again, like I am very happy that, you know, anime and Japan's culture has reached a larger audience, and that it's just overall it's more accessible for everyone, because man, I wish it had been this accessible when I was growing up.
Same.
Yeah. I wish it was this easy to get access to it.
Even
way back.
as an 11, 12-year-old in martial arts, having that exposure to that culture, I still didn't know what anime was. Like that's how not accessible everything was back then.
Yeah.
And John Knight in the chat was asking, have you ever watched Show by Rock?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
That's one of Doug's favorites.
Apparently John too, because every guest we bring on, he asks that question. Show by Rock is a cute show. I have a Japanese art book for the show.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll write that down to check out. Show by Rock. It's called Show by Rock.
Yep, there's 4 seasons and a small group of shorts. It is English dubbed, and for Show by Rock seasons 1 and 2 and Show by Rock Mashimaresh, even the songs are English dubbed. They got permission from the Japanese studios and the bands to dub all the music. Show by Rock Stars, they did not get permission for.
That's too bad. Yeah, honestly, I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch a lot of anime. I'm also, again, multi-genre, so I'm into comic books. I've been reading, comic books lately, watching TV. There's so many like superhero things and stuff right now on TV. And then I think though my most recent anime that I've really been into, randomly, I don't even know why, was One Punch Man.
There you go.
Like I really like One Punch Man. I did, for an isekai though, I did like I was reincarnated into a slime. I think it's the full title.
One time I was reincarnated as a slime.
Yeah.
One of the better isekais.
I dropped my power glove.
And you can see behind you have a Spider-Man and
yes, I couldn't help myself. I was like, well, if I'm going to stream, I'm going to like have a set, right? So I pulled out some of my favorite things, and
That's Snorlax's paw right there.
yes, he is. Let me try to turn the camera. Here he is.
Oh, that's cute.
He's actually Beanbag, and he makes an appearance in our manga library. So we also have a manga library with over like 1,500 volumes, curated by a really awesome manga librarian who really knows her stuff. Her own personal collection is over 2,000 books at this point.
Oh wow!
So he is he's in the house because obviously we don't want to store him outside during the winters. So he's in the house right now, chilling. I have like another giant bean bag, which is actually one of the ghosts from Mario. He's sitting across from me on the couch. But so behind me, I'll try to angle the camera. You can see
Spider-Man
is-
and Deadpool.
That is a Deadpool, but that's a life-size statue of Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And funny you should mention Blockbuster
Oh,
because he is one of the limited edition Blockbuster life-size figures that they had for the promotions of the very first Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire in them. So I should have checked what number he is, but he's like a numbered I think they'd made like 1,000 of them or something silly like that. But he was found at a Savers, if you're familiar with a thrift store.
Yep.
So one of my friends who's on staff, she's like, there's a Spider-Man statue here at Savers for $200 and it's half price day. Do you want me to grab it? And I'm like, yes. So we picked up this life-size statue of Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man for like $100. And
Wow.
he is a little fragile. Unfortunately, he's got some damage, so he's not like in mint condition. If he was in mint condition, he'd probably be worth like $1,000 or something crazy
Sick.
like that. But he had some damage. His arm has been broken off at some point, and they put it back on. His paint is chipped in areas, but originally we were going to take him to the convention, but because he's fragile, he's a little difficult to move. So he will eventually go down into my office. I have an office space down in my basement. So he will eventually live down there with all my Loki and other anime figures. And then the Deadpool is a cardboard cutout. He was actually from a 7-Eleven. And I used to always go and get gas there and pester them every single time that I went in going, can I have your Deadpool cut out? He's like an advertisement for like Slurpees. So the guy finally was just like, just take it. So I was like, thank you. And he's been mine for ever since. So he sometimes we'll throw him up somewhere in the convention, or sometimes he just like lives in the house. At some point I'll probably throw him downstairs. I don't know. But I figured he'd be fun. They're like the OTP, the secret OTP. So
That could be a new game at Pop Cult. Just hide Deadpool around and be like, where's Deadpool? And have it be a game where, like, 3 or 4 times throughout the convention, it gets moved to a different area by staff and nobody knows where it's going to end up next. And people have to keep track of that.
I'm going to write that down, Doug. Find the Deadpool.
It's kind of funny. At Anime-Zing this year, there was someone that was in one of those suits, like for hunting or in the military, that makes them look like a potted plant, and they were constantly moving around the convention.
Oh yes, John, I am excited for season 3. I need to find a place where I can watch season 2 again, though.
About to say, which show?
Oh, he was asking
One
about
Punch Man.
One Punch Man.
Oh, I got the hookup. You want sub or dub? Oh wait, I think there's only sub.
Oh no, let's not fight. Sub. I like subbed.
Okay, so you're like me.
Yeah,
I like both. I'll watch it. Watch him subbed and dubbed. Of course, you always get the enjoyment of watching them subtitled to get the true feel for the show. I watch them dubbed if I'm busy, and also for research for future voice acting guests for the show.
And also, you watch sub if you get hooked into a show and can't wait for the dub.
That's true.
Never happened, Bo Fury.
I
was gonna say shenanigans.
Well, that's talking about how accessible things are. I mean, can you believe Crunchyroll? I remember it would take months to get it, or if not years, to get a dub, and now they literally can do, like the subtitling almost at the same time a show comes out, right? So it's like you can literally simulcast stuff that's coming out in Japan. You can watch it here in America subtitled. It's amazing.
And then 3 weeks later, you get it dubbed.
Yeah, I will say one thing on the dub, because I know it's controversial, or it used to be. I don't know how controversial it is anymore.
There's still a war.
Is there?
There is.
I will say this. I usually prefer subtitled just because I think that the Japanese like voices, when they cast the voices, I think it's a little like they seem to put sometimes a little more care into who they pick, just like how they would like cast a specific actor for like a specific role or something like that. So sometimes, and I think in America, they just do it based on what company is doing the dubbing and who they have available. I don't think sometimes they necessarily always pick the right character or the right voice actor who has maybe an interesting voice for that particular character. So that's usually why I prefer subtitled, but
I will say the dubs have gotten a lot better. Because I
I
remember going back to like Rosario Vampire days and Iyasha, where listening to them in English, that's what you were used to. But now there is such a wide pool of voice actors that do work, like either out in LA, go through Bang Zoom. The pandemic really opened up the voice acting world to everybody. If you had a home recording studio, you could record for anybody, and that kind of blew the whole industry of voice acting wide open. And now you're seeing actors and comedians and people who you wouldn't think voicing in an anime or video game, now they're able to do it.
yeah.
mean, I too prefer watching subtitles, but I've seen the difference. My first experience with a dub was something out of the late '90s, early 2000s, and the dub was one specific character was so obnoxious. The voice was so obnoxious. No offense to the voice actor. I think that was just the character as a whole. But it
I was about to
was,
say, was the character written to be obnoxious in the show,
I
or
don't think so. I don't know if any of you have seen As Mangadao.
no?
That was my first experience with a dub, and there's a character who's from Osaka, so everybody just calls her Osaka, and in the dub they gave her a southern accent, and it was a really bad southern accent, and I had to go back and rewatch the entire thing subbed
Yeah. No,
because
that
I could
reminds
not
me.
get through it.
That reminds me of Gundam Wing because that was one of my first experiences with the dub, and I was so upset that they gave Duo Maxwell like like an American because he was supposed to be American, so they gave him like a surfer dude accent, and I'm like, that is nothing like the character whatsoever. It was so disappointing, So yeah, so thankfully, yes, it has gotten better, but
It's
some of
come a
us,
long it's come a long way, and I'm not as insistent about watching subtitles.
yeah, it still haunts me. I can't. No.
I will still say that the best dub still is Ghost Stories. I would say that that's still the best dub. Just because of what they were able to get away with, and everybody associated with that show says there's no way that would have flown today.
Nope.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
still a great show.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Sometimes there's things lost in the translation. I mean, you get the same thing too with the subtitled translations, but when when they have to match the mouth flaps, you can get some weird things going on. So I'd still prefer subs.
And
I also think that it has to do with the recording process, because I know in Japan, at least pre-pandemic, they would, if there was a scene with 5 people, they would have every voice actor in and they could play off of each other. Where Funimation, Crunchyroll, High Dive, Sentai Filmworks, Aniplex, whoever's doing the recording, brings the voice actors in one at a time into the booth, and everybody's separate. And then they have to mix the audio together. I think that also has, a big part in why the flow of sub is so much better than the flow of dub, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think sometimes they record the voices before they animate as well, too, right? In Japan.
Not sure on that one.
Video games, they do that. From talking with voice actors who have done video games and anime, a lot of times for a video game character, they'll record the voice for the character, record 150 lines, and never see an animation of the character until the game comes out.
Yeah.
As opposed to anime where they typically have to see
The scene that
the
they're in
scene so that
to
they
get
can match
the
the mouth flaps in both Japanese and in English. It's very important to do that.
match the mouse flaps, match the setting for the scene, get the emotion if there is any, kind of get a feel for the whole thing.
Yep.
Which most of the stuff I'm watching this season on Crunchyroll, I'm watching it in Japanese with the subtitles, and then I will go back and rewatch it in English because, granted, a lot of them are sequels that I'm watching, and I've already watched the first season in English, so I want to continue on both aspects. And I am watching a lot of Isekai.
Obvious by your explosion girl right there.
Yeah, I have been loving this series. If you are a fan of Konosuba, you need to see the one that's airing right now, the story of Megumin, and basically the back history of her character. They're leading up to how she meets up with Kazuma and Aqua and everybody else, and it has been quite an interesting story, and a character that's loved by so many Konosuba fans becomes even more lovable because you get to see a better understanding of what turned her into a bottle rocket, basically. One time explosion girl, and she's done for the day.
And Union, of course.
And Union.
But poor kitty.
That's one thing that was cool about this figure, and a fun little fact about this figure. With the move, and yesterday, for those of you who are wondering why I seem a little bit out of it tonight, I had 14 hours of driving. Friday night was pick up a U-Haul, load the U-Haul with everything from storage, and a lot of the stuff that I was able to pack from the house here. This is one of the figures that escaped being put into a box and put in storage, partially because the box that she was supposed to go in, I discovered today that this box here, which is a Megumin box because I had 3 figures, the character is supposed to go in this, went in her box. She's too big for this, so she's going to have special treatment in a different container for when we do our big move. But 14 hours of driving took a bit out of me.
Yep, I did that when I went to Ohio. That one a while back, and yep, that knocked me on my butt.
So it's funny you should mention the whole boxing thing because when I was like looking at some of your other previous shows to kind of get an idea, of what I should prepare and stuff like that, you had done the grab bags from Anime Boston and kind of did a little unboxing video.
Yeah.
So I actually have a couple of boxes here that I can open up if you'd like. We are as I've been saying, we've been doing more marketing events. So we actually have a marketing event coming up next weekend in Waltham, where one of our, the businesses that we work with is Game Underground, which is a really great fun arcade in Waltham, and they're having a huge Street Fighter event. So we're going to go with our little marketing table with the sand art and things that we do, and we're going to have an informal costume contest with them. So we put together some prize bags, and some of the things that we decided to get were like these little Street Fighter, like, I'm not even sure what you'd call them. They're not figures, but they're like the frames with screen captures from the games and stuff.
Yeah.
So I ordered some and they're still in their boxes, so I haven't even looked at them. So I do have, if we want to spend a few minutes.
Of course.
Oh my goodness, they're all taped together. Thankfully I have the box cutter. They're pixel frames.
Exclusive look right here.
Yep, so these are the 3 things. So this is for the top 3 cosplay winners. We're going to give them free badges to PopCult AnimeCon. And then we also got these little, I guess they're called pixel frames. And we ordered these, and there's some iconic scenes, I guess, from the Street Fighter game. Because as probably people know, I think it's Street Fighter 3, or am I behind?
6 is
sure.
the one that
Oh my
just
God.
got released.
6. Okay, I'm way behind. Whoops. So, all right. So here's one of the first ones. So this is an iconic scene. If I can get it in the
Oh yeah.
camera shot. So this is Chun-Li. And who is that?
Guile.
Guile, yes. And they're doing the fun little, my goodness, camera. There we go. They're beating up the car, as everyone knows, that iconic opportunity where you get to beat up the fancy car. And these are actually really nice. They're and I'll apologize whoever actually is going to get this, but I'm going to cut this open. So they, first of all, they come in these nice boxes. Oh, okay, so you could hang these on the wall as well, but it's this actual like 3D frame.
Oh, that's
Oh, wow.
cool.
So I'm sorry, my extra little lighting here is, you can see my screen. But yeah, so this is the first one we have, which is really nice. And so I'm also actually, I haven't done a cosplay in a while, but because of this event, I'm actually putting together a Chun-Li cosplay.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was actually working on that today while I was waiting to come on the show. All right, so box number 2. Oh, okay. So this is an iconic scene. Between Ryo and Ken. So we have this really cute. Whoop.
It's always fun when you're playing with the camera. You
you're
move
like,
it one way, and it's the exact opposite when you see it on the screen.
I know, right? There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So that's really cool. That's actually, it's got the ship. And I know there's this sound effect for this, but so yeah, so they're actually really excited about this event. They're going to have it's going to be live streamed on Twitch. They actually have a pretty big Twitch streamer coming to host the event.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they're shutting down the street, in fact, because it's going to be a big event in Waltham. And so there's going to be a stage out on the street, and they're going to have a big screen. They're actually renting a really big screen to kind of show everybody as they're playing. They're still taking signups. So if you're in the Waltham area on Saturday, June 17th, so just next Saturday, and you happen to be a Street Fighter player, you might want to be interested, or you should check it out. I believe it's a $500 prize as well. So there's some skin in the game.
Now, is New Underground still on Moody Street, or did they relocate?
I believe it's still on Moody Street. Yeah. So they shut Moody Street down. So
yeah, they've been doing. There's a chunk of Moody Street that's like perpetually shut down, so that the businesses can do outdoor setups, and basically it'll function like a block party on the weekends.
Yeah. So yeah, and so we're gonna have our table out as well, because we do, from our marketing event, we do sand art with people, and then of course hand out flyers and talk about our event. Now this, I've been told, is a meme. Probably people who are actually more familiar with the game will know this scene.
I'm not the most familiar with the game, so
okay, sorry, I will get the camera. So what do they call this? Oh, it's the third strike moment, number 37. So I was told that this was a particular amusing point in the game, and that true fans would appreciate that. So we got that as well.
That's cool.
Yes. So first look. So these are going to be the prizes for the top 3 cosplayers, and they're going to have we're going to run for Video Game Underground. We're going to host their cosplay contest. They've worked in conjunction with another business nearby, which is an ice cream shop. So we got free ice cream for the first 30 contestants. It's any fighting game, so not just Street Fighter costumes. You can be an any fighting game character. And obviously, we'll have the young adults or the children's section as well, and we'll have like ribbons and stickers for them. Anyone who participates, and then for our older adults, older teens, we'll have like obviously we have these 3 prizes, and then we have free badges for the top 3 winners as well. And then everybody who participates is going to get a ribbon and free ice cream. So it's going to be a lot of fun. They actually have a website up as well. If you go to the Game Underground website, they have the event itself is called Fighting in the Streets. So we're actually really looking forward to being able to do an event with them. Normally we do a big event with Free Comic Book Day. So we were actually out in Rochester, New Hampshire for Free Comic Book Day recently. And we sponsor their cosplay contest as well. So we were able to like give out a bunch of free badges for them. And then we set up our little table and do marketing as well. So
That's awesome.
yeah, no, it is. I'm actually really excited. I hadn't even opened these boxes yet. So these things are actually like really nice. So
They look like the artwork on that looks amazing. The
yeah,
fact
it's
that
like
they were able to layer everything.
Yeah, no, and they're iconic scenes from the game, and then of course the meme scene, which people should appreciate. So
And you
again,
might even see during the tournament.
yeah, exactly. So though I'm not sure what version of the game those are from. I don't know if they're from like they must be from an older series anyway. But if 6 is the one that just came out, so yeah. So if anybody's going to be in the Waltham area next weekend, check it out. And obviously, we're going to be in Waltham too later in the summer as well. So,
And fun fact for anybody that's interested in cosplaying from anime, there are a few anime fighter games, including a PS2 version of Inuyasha, was a Street Fighter style fighting game with Inuyasha characters.
that's funny. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of. I mean, you could do a Disney character like Kingdom Hearts. Would that technically be a fighting game? You can show up with your Keyblade.
There was also a Gundam fighting game.
Pokemon.
I was about to say Pokemon counts because it's turn-based.
Yeah.
So a lot of variety out there. So like Hemlock was saying, you don't have to show up just as Street Fighter cosplayers. I'm sure there'll be a lot of those, but really anything.
Yep, and it starts, I believe we're going to start I mean, you can actually sign up already for the contest if you want now on the Game Underground website, but the actual contest itself, let's see, I wrote down some 2 p.m. So the tournament itself for the Street Fighter tournament starts at noon, and then when they're taking their break at 2 p.m., we're going to do our little contest. And they have actually a lot of fun stuff planned. They're going to have the nearby martial arts / karate studio. They're going to come up and do a demonstration. So you'll actually have fighting in the streets with some martial artists. Then obviously the big main event is going to be the tournament itself for a cash prize. Obviously we're going to be there doing the cosplay contest, and then they're going to have the taiko drummers as well. So if you're
that's cool.
Yeah, no, we've actually had them at Pop Cult as well. There's a group in the Boston area that does the drumming, and they'll come out and do classes where they'll bring like a bunch of little drums for everybody to play, or they'll do like an actual performance where they'll bring the big drums out and they'll play. So they're going to be doing that at like 3:45, and then the overall event should wrap up around 6 p.m. So it could be a full day, again, if somebody's looking for something to do in the area on Saturday.
You may have to go check that out, Ange, if you've got time.
That's not far from me, so that's a big maybe. It depends on what life, the universe, and everything, as I like to say.
So yeah, no, they're gonna. James, who runs the game Underground, is pretty excited about the event. He's put in a lot of work and to organize it, and he's actually excited about the gaming itself as well, because I guess quite a few well-known people in the tournament circuit is actually to come by and make an appearance. So he's very excited. And of course, obviously, we do gaming and arcades at the Pop Cult as well, though we work with the arcade company System Arcadia, who also works with Game Underground. And we bring like Dance Dance Revolution and Jew Beat and like Pump It Up and stuff like that. So we always have some arcade stuff at Pop Cult as well. And when we have video console gaming available too. So we try again to cover the whole gambit of anime fans and pop culture fans.
And going back to Pop Cult and pulling the website back up again, other quick links that people interested in going should check out. Panel submissions close on 7/1.
Yep.
And you're also looking for Masquerade judge signups.
Yeah, we have a couple of slots open for Masquerade judging, specifically the skits, like performance judging. We have craftsmanship judges already, but we needed a couple of more people to see about performance judging. Obviously, we're looking for people who've got experience, possibly have won some awards. So that's a Google Doc application. Soon we'll be looking for staff as well. So I know I've had this conversation recently with some people, younger people who are like, oh, I want to go to more conventions, but I can't afford it. And we tell them staff. Most conventions, they'll pay for, crash space in the hotel. They'll give you food, they'll give you a t-shirt. Then you get to meet and make a whole new group of friends. Usually about the only thing you have to do is get yourself there. So as long as you have some reliable form of transportation and time off for the weekend, you can go to a convention practically for free. So I hope people, if they hadn't considered it before, might consider staffing. It's a lot of fun.
I think staffing's the only thing. Staffing and being a guest, I think, the only two things I haven't done at a convention.
I would argue that you were a guest at OneCon last year.
Yeah, I take that lightly because we were probably the most famous people at Anime because they didn't have any voice acting guests, but I still don't know if I consider being a guest or just, covering press as I usually will do.
As we do. Semantics.
Well, I can tell you kind of from our perspective, we actually don't bring in large guests at all, and we do that on purpose. One of the things that kind of helped us get started was keeping the finances, under control, and that kind of meant we couldn't afford to bring in, like a voice actor or talent or something like that. Just logistics, appearance fees, things like that. Because again, being in the greater Boston area, you have to think about, oh, if I'm going to fly people in, I have to go pick them up. I have to make sure they get to the hotel. I have to make sure, that they're taken care of while they're at the hotel and fed and all this stuff. And then I have to make sure they get back to the airport in time to catch a flight. And, you have to pay for a flight. So when we were kind of making the plan for what we were going to do with Pop Cult, we decided that, what, we're not going to compete with Anime Boston for guests. If people want to see guests, they can go to Anime Boston. What we're going to focus on instead is things for people to do. So we have lots of game shows and like participant sort of activities, like the Masquerade, like the Idol show, like, the art, the tabletop gaming, like the video gaming. We wanted more activities for people to do, and that on the flip side of that, we would concentrate on local people. So we were more like, let's invite local artists, let's invite local cosplayers, let's invite, like local musicians and stuff like that. So that, yes, obviously we're still taking care of them, but we don't have to pay for, flights and things like that, that they can get themselves to the convention, and then we can just give them a hotel room and make sure they have food and stuff like that. So, and then obviously they wouldn't necessarily have an appearance fee or a lot of expenses like that. So that was kind of a choice we made, just because again we wanted to be affordable and kind of go in a slightly different direction. So I can definitely understand with that, sometimes, yes, some people go to conventions for guests and things like that, but there are other things to do, and it can be a valid choice for a convention to be like, you know what, we're not going to do guests because we can't do them well. And unfortunately, a a convention can get a bad reputation with guests if they can't like take care of them properly. um,
It can be a double-edged sword, and everybody's heard stories of there are people out there who have been guests at conventions, and not just voice actors, but actors in general, that they are very difficult to deal with, and very high demanding of what they expect to appear at events and things. And I like the fact that you focus on, okay, we don't want to be for having mediocre guests. We'd rather just take care of our own and make sure everybody has fun. Helps, as you said, helps keep the costs down so that you can focus more on,
the overall experience.
And like you said, you want to be an affordable con. If you have to shell out an extra $10,000 just to bring in 3 voice actors, that's going to raise ticket prices. That's going to raise table prices. That's going to raise a lot of things that people already complain about.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is you have to have very professional staff and very responsible staff, because again, you have to make sure you can get them from the airport and stuff like that. And I will say though, it's not like we haven't had at least one voice actor guest in the past, and that's only again through our connections, because we have had Michelle Knotts
Yep.
come as well, and that's mostly because she's a friend of like a friend myself, and then friends of other staff members, and she was actually willing to be like, I'll take the train, I won't charge you an appearance fee. She actually little
She's
fun
a
story.
sweetheart.
She's great. And a little fun story, she's like, can you get me some lobster? And I'm like, I will hook you up. I'm from Maine, my family are lobstermen. So I had my brother get her some lobster and cook her the lobster and bring her lobster. So she was able to come to Pop Cult and have fresh made lobster. So that was kind of her perk. And we were very grateful to her for doing that. But again, that was kind of one of those things where we could do that because she was willing, very, graciously willing to give up an appearance fee that she would have gotten had she gone to like an Anime Boston or something like that, because
Oh yeah.
she's she's been in the business a while, she's got quite the credit um on her resume and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was great. We were able to do that I think she came in 2018, so it was a couple years ago obviously now. But again, it was one of those things where we have some I can't say anything yet because we're still in the contract phase, but we're getting ready to start to do some big announcements about our guests this year. So we've got we've got our cosplay guests already in, situated. We've got a performer coming to do some music, which I can't say yet, but that's actually, I'm really excited about that. And then we just are getting ready to announce our featured panelists as well. And in fact, our featured panelists, kind of fun fact, is that they have actually just been submitting to panels through our normal panel submission process. And we couldn't help but notice that, you're really great. You do a lot of panels. You really bring something to the convention. Let's, you know, give you some accolades by sort of elevating you to like, we're gonna be like, you're a guest now, or as we call them, you're a local legend. So we'd much rather promote and raise people up from our own community.
And that's an awesome thing. I love hearing that. When I started this show back in 2014, I started as a way to give back to the anime and pop culture community. Anime got me through a very messy divorce, and knowing how it helped me go through a terrible time in my life, and knowing that it helps a lot of people get through terrible times even today, I wanted to do something to give back to the community that helped me get through something. And at the time, I was doing paranormal talk radio. And it's the weirdest jump to go from talking about ghosts and demons and stuff of that nature to anime, but we had a guest cancellation on a show I was co-hosting. They had a family emergency on Sunday night before a Wednesday appearance. Monday night, I sent a random Facebook message to a well-known voice actress, told her who I was, what was going on, and asked if she'd be interested. Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a message from our booking producer saying everything's all set for an 8 o'clock show. We just need to promote it. Got out of work at 6, home at 6:30. That's where I first met Darren, and with High School of Anime Lovers, told them what was going on. They allowed us to promote the show. We crashed the chat room for the first time in Hazy Radio history because the guest was Jeremy Lee. And when we realized there was a genuine interest in talking with voice actors, we reached out to Tia Ballard, Terry Doty, Todd Habercorn, all who had come on the show, and that's what gave the host of that show and our booking producer the giving me the nudge. Hey, you should do this. There's an actual interest. And there wasn't really any anime podcasts at the time that I could find that was more than just playing music here and there. And that's basically the history of how we started. And here we are 9 years later, finally got smart last year and switched over to YouTube, added video to it. And I'm hoping within the next few years that we can get out to more cons and stuff. I know next year is going to be rough with me adjusting to a new schedule with a new job and not having much time off. I'm going to have a 6 days on call, 2 days off schedule, which means I could get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning to be at the rail yard by 3:30 or 4 and be on a train going 200 miles, 300 miles. But once I figure out what the schedule is going to look like, maybe it'll open up more cons. But my last convention for the next year plus might be PucciCon in Pennsylvania.
So yeah, I was going to say you managed to get some good interviews. I think you were saying at Anime Boston.
Yep.
Doing the press, and you're right. Moving out, further west is going to open up a lot more conventions. I know here been on the East Coast, so I think the farthest I've ever gone was DerpyCon, which is New Jersey.
Yeah.
I used to go a couple of times to Otakon when it was still in Maryland. So before they moved. So yeah, like that's going to open up a lot. I know Ohio has quite a few conventions that are pretty good. So
I've done the drive from Massachusetts to Colossal Con in Sandusky. That was something.
Yeah. Pretty drive out in the Poconos, but that is a long drive.
No, we did. I've not actually been to the East one. I went to Ohio.
I forget. Sorry, you're right. There's more than one Colossal Con.
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
I couldn't imagine. Like, I have enough to do with one. Like, running 4, that is a full-time job.
They do East Prime. I believe they're starting one in Texas at the Kalahari.
Last year was their first year in Texas.
And then they do a cruise usually in January.
And they have Midwest.
Where is Midwest?
I want to say Michigan.
That one's... I've not heard of that one. But I did the Colossal Cruise the first year they did it.
Where was that sailing out of? New York or...
Orlando.
Orlando, yeah.
we flew into Orlando. I believe it was, I want to say Port Canaveral, basically one of the larger cruise ship ports not far from Orlando.
Okay, they have one in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, Round Rock, Texas, Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, and their original one in Ohio, plus a cruise.
Yep. That is a full-time job. Whoever's running that is their job.
Yep.
So yeah, our
But-
pop cult is still volunteers.
But
so.
as far as conventions go, the furthest I have traveled for a convention, I believe, is Gen Con Indy for tabletop gaming.
Yeah. No,
Indianapolis.
now that I think about it, because I'm like, I know I've been to more conventions. Technically, the furthest I've ever gone, but that was kind of a flight. So I did go to YowieCon a couple of years out in San Francisco.
Nope. Gen Con, I have both driven and flown. Each was a separate adventure.
Is that the one that's in Indianapolis?
Yep.
Yeah, I've been looking at that. I actually wanted to go.
It's, if you enjoy tabletop gaming, it's worth the experience. That being said, I will do some semblance of a shameless plug. PAX Unplugged it covers the same similar content. It is in Philadelphia and cheaper.
I don't know. I don't have as many opportunities to play tabletop here because I live out in the middle of the woods. But I do like the terrain. So I wanted to go to Gen Con just so I could see the Dwarven Forge crew. So I've been, as I was mentioning before, I just dropped some money on a bunch of their new Kickstarter stuff. So I really like miniature terrain for some reason.
There is there is miniature stuff at PAX Unplugged. That's not my forte. But I'm also, for the past couple of years, I've also been one of the enforcers at the info booth for PAX. So, but I also, when I'm not doing that at those kind of events, I do a lot of D&D and board games. That's more my thing.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring that up too because we have a new sponsor this year, which is Games and whoops, what did I write it down? Yeah, it's Games and Friends. Because I might have said it backwards, but Games and Friends in Springfield, Massachusetts. Sarah Hodge Weatherby and her husband opened that up, and Sarah Hodge Weatherby is usually known as a featured panelist on the con circuit, and she's helped us out with panels as well in the past. And I actually was just able to make a connection with her this year at Anime Boston, going, we need someone to take over a tabletop. I unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I lost some staff. Not lost, but they life changes, etc. over the time skip, so they didn't come back. So I was like, I need somebody with expertise and connections, and then we could give you obviously marketing as a sponsor. So she was really awesome and has come in, and she's found us already like 4 or 5 people to come in and do tabletop and stuff with us. So we're actually able to get our tabletop gaming up and running again this year. So obviously we'll have like drop-in board type gaming, but then they're also going to do RPG sessions and do like various different kind of games as well. So depending on who's going to run what. So if anyone in the Massachusetts area or the greater Massachusetts area, because they're out in Springfield, needs a new gaming shop, I can definitely recommend Games and Friends, and you'll get to see them at Pop Cult running our tabletop room.
Awesome. And not just Massachusetts, but all over New England. Head out there. Springfield's not a far drive from anywhere in New England or a lot of the New York,
The
Central New York
irony,
areas.
except Boston.
Except Boston. It's only 2 hours.
More than. I've done it.
I mean, granted, Boston's an hour from Boston, but that's besides the point.
from the city, we actually had to go to, I want to say, Pittsfield, because my husband had commissioned a cosplay from one of our friends, and we had to go out there for a fitting, and then we ended up stopping in Springfield on the way back to hit up the casino because we could. Because why else would we be out there?
I mean, I've spent way too much time driving to Springfield. I have a friend out there. Plus, being a railroad fanatic, they hold I think it's the country's second largest model railroad show. Um, that usually falls around the last weekend of January, first weekend of February, at the Eastern States Exposition Center. And I'd gone to that train show, I think, like 7 years in a row. When I was a part of a train group for teens, we would have a table there every year. Wonderful people at the Amherst Railway Society who put that on.
But no, you could literally, if I'm not so sure how true this is now as things are coming back, bouncing back from pandemic, but before the pandemic, you could literally go online and there would be a convention literally every weekend for most of the year, depending on how far you were willing to go.
Yeah. Sometimes multiple conventions, which
Yep.
if you're, I mean, honestly, if you're like on the East Coast or in the middle of the country or whatever, it doesn't always matter what's going on the East Coast or West Coast, because you know you'd usually just have your market of the local people and stuff like that. So at a certain point, some saturation is fine, because if there's a convention going on the East Coast and one going on the West Coast on the same date, doesn't really matter, because usually there's more than enough people to go around. But when it's in the same geological or geographical area,
Like for example, if there was one in southern New Hampshire and one in northern New Jersey the same weekend.
yeah, it's a little close, but not as bad. I know for us, we always were worried about Fan Expo being on the same weekend, and that would literally be in the same city, and that would be a problem. If there's, and again, that's my own opinion. Some other people may feel differently, but I've usually, if there's 100 or more miles apart, it's not horrible. It's not ideal, but it's not horrible. Ideally, again, you'd at least be on a different weekend or something like that. But yeah, at a certain point pre-pandemic, there was a great deal of saturation with big shows, little shows, lots of just one-day fan events as well, um, like cosplay meetups and stuff like that. So unfortunately, the pandemic did a, it devastated the industry, like events, conventions, like it devastated the entire industry. We were lucky that we were able to get out of our contract because of force majeure, act of God, or actually more because of the government wouldn't allow us to have events anyway. But and then we, at that time, we were only doing a yearly contract, so we didn't have a multi-year contract we had to worry about. But yeah, no, it did wipe some smaller conventions completely off the map, and it hurt some of the bigger conventions as well, because depending on, how much money they had to, outlay for expenses from year to year. I know for us, I'm lucky that I have, property, so I'm able to store our stuff on my home, so I don't have to pay like for storage and stuff like that. But some of the other bigger conventions probably have to pay for office space and storages and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, depending on what kind of contract they have, they might have had to pay fees for that. And then too, if you're a big show where you actually might have full-time staff, you might be paying salaries, and stuff like that. So yeah, it hurt a lot, and it's been a little slow to kind of pick back up, depending on what area. It feels like Anime Boston did fine, which is great, because I'm obviously it's the big show, and it was one of my first conventions, so it's near and dear to my heart. And for us too, it's like, thankfully we've been okay, but we still need to grow. So it's one of those things where we're trying again to get more and more people to come. So
As a con chair, What's your like? I'm sure you've seen some of the larger events with how much they've raised their ticket prices since coming back. What's your thoughts on that?
It's unfortunate. I mean, I can't say we haven't had to raise our prices too. I mean, obviously our prices have gone up very, like, we started at 35 and now we're up to 45, so we've gone up $10 in the past 5-6 years. So it does worry me, just because at a certain point you price everyone out of the market, right? Like, I know that our attendee, target audience or whatever, they're still, that older high school to college age, and they don't always have, the disposable income. So it is, of course, now I'm older, like, I have disposable income, so I can still afford to go to shows. But I worry about the younger audience that might not necessarily get to go to the shows, and then they're missing out on the community, because that's really what the convention ultimately is. It's about being with your community. And if you can't get to your community, or you can't participate in your community, what's left? I mean, yes, we can do things online, but that that only goes so far. So that's one of the things where, I'm glad we have small conventions, or even just one day small events where people can at least, hopefully still afford to go. And I'm hoping with the bigger shows that at a certain point, like, it'll level off and they won't quite going up. I mean, right now we're just in an inflationary market, so there's not much we can do about it anyway, because if it's more expensive to pay for the hotel space or the convention space, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, you have to pay the
I
bills.
mean, for example, like two big examples would be Anime Boston, the significant price increase between 2018 and 2023. And then Anime New York City's prices got posted recently for their event later this year. And
Now, I know Anime Boston's a nonprofit. Is Anime New York, is that a for-profit con, or
that I am not.
I think it is a for-profit con. I forget the company that.
You know what? Let me.
Okay, for a nonprofit, and I can't say, because I've never actually staffed Anime Boston in any capacity, so I can't say for sure. My opinion or thought would be poor management led them to needing more money. Again, 2 years without any income is tough for any convention, so it just might have been like they had to balance the books. But for a for-profit convention, that's just for profit. So it's, if they're raising their prices, it's for profit's sake, really, because maybe their costs have increased, but they're not eating that cost. They're just putting it on the attendee so that their profit margin stays the same. That's really what it comes down to, and it's too bad. Usually, if it's like a for a nonprofit convention or something, it's, again, poor management. They weren't that careful with the money, or, again, they didn't have as many ticket sales, or costs are more expensive, so they're trying to, like, balance the books.
It looks like it is a for-profit convention. It says on their website, if you go to their about, it's a creation of Left Field Media, an event company made of fans and organizers. Is built with tremendous support from Crunchyroll, Left Field. Yeah, they're run by Left Field Media, so
I would guess that it's for-profit.
I would be inclined to agree.
And I mean, and that's the same with any business. I mean, an event planning business is no different than any other business, where, if costs have gone up for everything, then so have their costs. But the difference is, if they don't raise the prices, then those extra costs would be eating into their profit. If they move, put those increases in costs on the customer or attendee, then they're doing it so that their profit margins stay the same or increase, is really kind of what it comes down to. And honestly, that's the same for any business. But you have to measure, again, as a business person, you have to weigh that against, what the market can bear. Because if you make more money if more people show up. That's just the way it is, you know? So I'd rather have 1,000 people show up than 100.
Quick question, and I'm only asking this because I noticed this recently. Have y'all start? Do y'all charge sales tax at the door when passes are required? Because that's something that used to not be done here, and I noticed it this year.
Um, I don't believe in Massachusetts, I don't think there is sales tax. I mean, we just have a flat fee anyway. So, because it's kind of like a ticket. Yeah, I
You
mean,
see, that was just something I noticed this year because it was different because the cost for the weekend was $70, but when I got up there to pay, it was 75, and I'm like, when did y'all start charging tax? Because convention years past, it's never happened, and I didn't know if that was something they did, something the
was it
state did. I
was it
haven't looked into my
which
any
state?
legislation.
Which
It was North Carolina, but I also haven't looked to see if anything was passed in the legislature recently.
I don't know. I can't speak to another state because again, we're based in Massachusetts. I do know that one thing that's kind of irritating me is PayPal and their fees.
Oh, I
Um, so
swear.
sometimes some conventions will eat the fees or they'll pass the fees on to the attendee. So like for us, we eat the fees. So we don't actually upcharge the attendee for like checking out with PayPal or whatever. So some conventions that could be just a fee based on like payment processing, or it could be that your state requires sales tax on that kind of ticket. Um, uh, it's hard to say. You'd have to look into it whether they are charging sales tax based on like because you're buying a ticket to an event. Though I
Like I said, it was introduced this year, and to my knowledge, there was nothing passed in the legislature recently. I just wanted to see how other conventions did it and if it was a common thing or not.
yeah, no, it depends. Yeah, for us, I'm actually kind of wishing there was a better payment processing thing because PayPal's gotten a lot worse. Like
Yeah,
especially
I
with
have a whole issue with them for other reasons.
well, and this has actually come to bite us this year, which is very frustrating, is that now at one point, like if you did a refund, because say somebody bought a ticket
Yep.
and oh, I can't go anymore, or more likely it's a vendor who's like, oh, here's $100. Oh, I can't make it anymore. And at a certain point or up to a certain point, we will give them a refund. But PayPal used to refund the fees. Now they don't refund the fees anymore. So
Sounds about right.
so even though we're giving the person back the full $45, it's actually costing us more because it costs us the processing fee. So, and unfortunately, we've had an issue this year where we had some trouble with our ticket/payment system. So people were like sending in payments multiple times because they didn't know it had gone through. So we've had to do like a lot of refunds this year, and every single time it like costs us money, and it's very frustrating. Which for a large business, it's just like, oh, it's the cost of doing business. But for a small business like us, where the whole point is to keep costs low, like every dollar counts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been very frustrating. And I don't know, we might look into maybe switching to Square if that's an option. At one point, obviously, PayPal was the only game in town for small businesses, but there are other options now. So
There's definitely more options. PayPal is, in my recent experience, PayPal is becoming more and more of
More and more of a headache.
a headache. However, that there's a couple of good things, which is why I haven't closed out my PayPal account. That and it's linked to like everything.
yeah, it was very easy to link it to our business accounts, like at our bank, but I was able to do the same thing with Square. And we use Square
Um,
already to take payments at the convention. So it might just be a matter of us switching over to using Square.
you, it's funny. Um, Totally unrelated, but you know who Square subsidiary company is, right?
No.
Cash App. You know who PayPal subsidiary company is?
Venmo.
Venmo. Yep.
That's irony at its finest.
It's funny too because I know some people that like will have one or the other, but not both.
Well, and being in the business I'm in, I was losing money, unfortunately, by not accepting either, so I had to get both.
I mean, at one point it was like accepting credit cards was an expense, and now it's like you have no choice because half the time nobody has cash on them.
And
Frustrating.
I would say that got even more true because of the pandemic. Everybody wanted contactless payment options.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to sanitize a credit card than money.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my
Mhm.
god. Oh, I have to talk about this because as a vendor for like 10 plus years, and people forget there was a thing called con crud where you would just get sick anyway. Like, talk about pandemic. Like, people going to conventions knew about getting sick. As a vendor, I came like we would keep hand sanitizer at the table because there is nothing more germy than sweaty money that some kid has had wadded up in their pocket, and they're like, "Here, have some money," um, which was great, but it is very hard, if near impossible, to sanitize paper money.
Yeah,
I
we know
spent
very well about con crud in this household.
uh
My wife is prone to getting it.
I mean, I spent 10 plus years working fast food in a drive-through window.
Um, I,
Cat paper money gets gross.
Yep.
yep, I still do it to this day.
Um, as far as con crud, I've been lucky in so much that most of the time I will end up just inevitably getting not sick, but just a migraine from sleep deprivation, and that's it.
Hmm.
But I am prone to migraines anyway, so.
I have gotten con crud, I think, once in my life, and I consider myself very lucky for that. Especially knowing the fact that for quite a while, I was averaging between 10 to 15 cons a year.
I have never gotten con crud ever.
Lucky. I used to, when I was vending, I used to get it regularly because, again, handling a lot of cash. But now that I'm running the convention, and even though I might be tabling at an event, I usually don't because, again, not handling money. So that's been a big help. But yeah, no, actually, at a certain point, I appreciated wearing masks at conventions because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get sick. So, because yeah, Concred, it was the worst. And again, it was just part of the experience, right? You'd be sad afterwards, to have the post-con depression, and then be sick.
And that was just your average convention. All the months of hype and stress for the cosplayers leading up to it. All of a sudden, the convention's here, in the blink of an eye, it's gone, and the depression sets in, and then you have to build up the excitement for the next one.
Yeah.
I
No,
still don't
well,
know how I made 13 cons last year. That was, looking back at my schedule, I put 23,000 miles on my old car last year.
wow. That is
13
a lot.
cons in like 7 states. And I wasn't really close to any of them. I think the average drive time to a convention was 4 hours one way.
Yeah. No, I remember putting in a lot of miles. Oh my god, but I used to get so lost, like before GPS.
Oh god, when you had to
Oh
use
my
the road maps, the books and stuff, and try to, where
Or
am I?
or the days of MapQuest.
oh my god, we'd
Map
get so lost.
MapQuest literally gave me directions to turn the wrong way down a one-way street.
Yep.
My
Although the early days of GPS,
Weren't much better.
was
TomTom.
even worse.
I remember I had a TomTom. I kind of miss my TomTom. I had I used to get the voices. I had Mr. T, which was great, and I kind of actually I haven't looked into seeing if you can get voices for the maps or whatever we're using now. I don't even know, some Google product.
you for Google Maps, I know there is a Sesame Street voice you can get. I think it's Cookie Monster.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, no, that was the best part of like having a TomTom was you could get celebrity voices. It was
But in
amazing.
the early days, it would not go across the border
Hmm.
because I was driving from. I drove to Logan Airport to pick up my friend who flew in from Albuquerque. We drove up to Montreal. Once we crossed the border, GPS went nope.
My dad, I would be pulling stuff up on Google Maps or some of the map services once I ended up getting a smartphone, and he would still be fighting me pulling the atlas out of the back of the truck and be like, "No, we used to go this way, showing me this, 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 and this." I'm like, "Sorry, I'm just giving you up to date, da 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 da." And me and him would argue about it until ultimately whoever was driving would just do what they wanted.
That's so funny. Yeah,
Yep.
no, my friend is like that too sometimes. Like we were just going somewhere yesterday and she's like, "Why is it telling me to go this way? When shouldn't I go that way?" And I'm sitting there, "Don't you dare turn left," when it's telling you to go right. Um, I am happy though that I grew up and know how to read a map just in case,
Mhm.
because it is a
Same.
skill, but I would not go anywhere without GPS. I
I
just
mean,
yeah.
Just like anime, navigation has become so mainstream that it makes possible to attend stuff we never would have dreamed of in the past.
and I maintain that modern functional GPS is how it did not take 3 hours to get home from the BCEC during PAX. Uh, we got stuck in a standstill on I-90. What we found out the next morning was that the Spirit of Boston was on fire,
Ooh.
but we got stuck literally right before the access road pull off. And I'm comfortable driving in the city. I do it often enough where I was like, I'm just going to take this off ramp and see where it takes us. It's probably going to take us just as long to get home at this rate. And it took us through parts of like Dorchester and it basically avoided Starrow Drive, avoided Memorial, avoided everything I am familiar with, and cut us all the way around. So we ended up basically coming back down Route 9. But we got home in less than an hour.
Well, there you go.
It kills me. I'll be following my GPS and it'll show me the fastest route. And then I'll go and take a back roads route that I know about, and I'll either get home faster or it'll just be the one day I happen to do so, and there's XYZ going on that I didn't account for.
Or it'll get mad at you and be like, rerouting,
Yeah,
Recalculating,
at that point,
recalculating.
take
at
a
that point,
U-turn.
I just turn it off and close it out because I'm like, nope, I'm not listening to you.
I want them to make an app for that. That if it says recalculating in a certain amount of times, it starts getting frustrated and then starts like cursing at you. I think
There,
that would be hysterical.
I'm sure there are mods for that.
I would
Yeah.
you can get Samuel L. Jackson for Amazon Alexa
That's too funny.
cursing and such like that.
What always amused me especially in Boston with the tunnels and stuff, is that you'd be on a road and you can't go anywhere because there's no off ramps or something. But then suddenly it'll think you're on another road and it'll tell you like, "Oh, turn off here." And I'm like, "I haven't left the road I'm on. I can't."
Yep.
So
Mhm.
It is in Boston. It will lose signal in the most random places.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then even though it's physically impossible for you to, so I don't know if it's gotten worse or better. I don't know if it's this
Um,
chat GPI or whatever is going on,
I
but
I
it's
think
like,
it's actually the cell. I think it's actually just the cell towers.
well, yes, I get it where like you lose the signal, but I'm kind of like, isn't there some kind of algorithm or programming in the background that would use like if than that kind of
Uh,
logic where it's
are
like
you
if you're on a
talking?
road, you can't, even though the signal's gone, there's no way impossible, it's not possible for you to suddenly like levitate and be up on this road that's above you. So it should just keep going on the path it was going until the signal reconnects or whatever.
Yeah, basically it'll go to the offline version and then it'll make a rough guesstimate or it'll like freeze and then once you get your signal back it'll show you your updated location.
Now, switching topics here, Ange, you brought something up
Oh,
earlier this week that was, you said that AJ was looking into more convention in
Oh,
Florida
that
not allowing crossplay
they have
per a
since
state law.
they have since the convention has since backpedaled on that, and basically enough people complained where they were like, cosplay is for everyone, here's our cosplay guidelines, and then basically the standard every convention, nothing overly sexualized, nothing that could be a safety hazard, and so on and so forth.
mhm.
But
I,
It's just to kind of, because I have a thought on this, because it's so weird for me to even hear this. Because, I mean, if you study history at all, obviously modes of dress have changed over the centuries. But if you like women today, like pants and shirts and tie, like that's become unisex, right? Like, am I in crossplay because I'm wearing pants right now? Like
that's
they only have a problem when it's a man in a dress. That's it. Like, what about a man in a kilt?
this
That's a
goes hand in
skirt, isn't it? I'm like, it's just
this g-
ridiculous.
the now the irony is the con where I got this notification on Twitter from was TFCon, Transformers. And my immediate thought upon reading this was, how do giant robots have a gender? How does that work? And apparently
um,
a lot of people thought that way, but this is going hand in hand with the the anti-trans laws and anti
It's Florida, right? It was
yes.
Yeah,
Florida. Enough said. It's Florida.
it's
Yep.
Florida.
And and some and seeing some of the stuff that comes out of some of those states, like Florida or Texas, it makes me really glad I'm in Massachusetts, but at the same time, it makes me wonder where are they getting these
Yeah,
notions?
I don't know. But it's funny too that you bring up the whole like Transformers, like robots having a gender. Well, first of all, I mean, it's kids based on a kids cartoon, so they gender everything anyway, right? But if you really think about it, I'm like, they should have been like non-gender or whatever anyway, because you're right, they probably would reproduce like machines do, where you just build it, right?
It,
So
it
they
it's
wouldn't necessarily need male, female.
I mean,
and
sh-
to that notion, maybe the fact that when kids, well, in general, when it has to be voiced by either a male or a female, so maybe that's why the association. I don't know.
Well, I
Well,
mean, I think most of the original Transformers were all male anyway, but that's an interesting social concept because maybe they had male and female genders just because of gender expression. Like as an individual, they're like, it doesn't matter because I'm a robot, but I am female, or I'm male, or I'm neither, or something. So
or I'm
that,
I'm a
both,
truck.
or
or
I or I
or
am both, or
you-
all, and
yeah,
Bumblebee, I'm a Corvette, or what?
mhm.
but that's kind of why that struck me is like if it was just an anime con, I think I would just scratch my head and go, it's Florida and forget about it. But the fact that it was Transformers, it really kind of made me think because you'd think that Transformers would be not necessarily like how if you're dressing up in a giant robot armor, how is that gendered per se, like in
well, I
those
mean,
terms?
again, like I said, from like going back to the original cartoons and stuff, or at least maybe not the first generation, but like in the second generation, they had female robots. I can't remember if they had any like human female characters in the show. I remember they had a couple of male characters in the originals from the 80s, which is the only ones I ever watched growing up. But I don't know. I mean, usually when it comes to giant robots, I think of Gundams, and there's also all kinds of characters you can cosplay from the Gundam series. So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, and then of course transforming. I don't know. I mean, maybe they thought about it because again, it's a Transformers con, so that kind of comes up. But I'm glad.
All in all, it's Florida being Florida.
Pretty much.
And the rest of the country has learned, don't take them seriously.
But it's too bad
Just
for
like
the
California.
community. It's too bad for the community because, especially with it being Pride Month and stuff like that right now. But we have a lot of LGBTQ plus people in our community, and to exclude them isn't right, because the love of anime and geeks and pop culture and stuff like that is not based in anything other than just your love for the genres and the shows and the characters and stuff like that. So to gatekeep like that is not cool.
No. That's one thing that we've always talked about on the show here is that we're happy to be a part of something that is so inclusive and welcoming to everybody, regardless of anything. No matter what status people want to judge other people by, anime doesn't care. If you like anime or comics, if you're into the Marvel universe, if you're into science fiction stuff, you're welcome to come in and dress how you want. Anime Boston, you'll see video game characters, you'll see people from Doctor Who, you'll see anime characters, you'll see people from all sorts of sci-fi, Star Trek, and things of that nature that you wouldn't normally see at an anime con, but they're all welcome. And
I remember one year seeing a sports mascot at Anime Boston.
Was it the Green Monster?
No, it was actually the Fox Network sports box.
Oh my god. So yeah, well, again, there's a lot of crossover. That's why for us, even though pop culture is in our name anyway, but we wanted to be a multi-genre convention because there's a crossover, right? It's I think you find very few pure just anime fans because usually there's a lot of crossover where we all grew up with cartoons and comics and pop culture shows and stuff like that.
We saw last year at PucciCon, New Jersey, the intermission during the masquerade, if you will, while the judges were off doing judgy things, there was a wrestling skit that was performed by con staff.
No, it was AEW people.
Yeah.
They weren't staff, they were AEW.
I stand corrected, but that proves the point of how much overlap there is between the different fandoms.
Well, there's wrestlers usually that guest at a lot of Comic Cons too, and stuff, because again, it's entertainment. So it's just, and they have just as crazy storylines, and think of the Undertaker and all that kind of stuff, and Hulk Hogan and all these people.
I got to meet Knobs from the Nasty Boys. I had like a 5-minute interview with him at a convention years ago.
Yeah, it's just as much a great story as any anime or movie or stuff like that. So it's just it fits in well. And again, like you have the people that you like more than just one thing. Like people who like sports usually like more than one sport, or they might like NASCAR and sports or fishing and stuff like that. So it's usually like people that are in the geek kind of umbrella or under the geek umbrella. We usually like more than one thing, again, because usually you're exposed to it, and it's all about great storytelling ultimately. At least I feel it is.
We are almost out of time. I just looked up. We got about 5 minutes left. This show just flew by. And before we run out of time going off talking on a tangent like we like to do on the show here, we want to give you a chance to promote yourself, promote the con, anywhere people can find out information about Pop Cult. This is known as our shameless plugging section, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, again, we're Pop Cult Anime Con, and you can find us at popcultanimecon.com, or most social medias, our Instagram. We get a lot of stuff. We're posting pictures on our Instagram. We have a TikTok now. Facebook, etc. The most information obviously is on our website. This year, we're August 26th through the 27th at the Westin Hotel in Waltham, Massachusetts. Obviously, you can still get some hotel rooms, but our block is filling up fast. So if you're interested in staying at the hotel, I definitely see about booking a room soon. But we have a great deal for a Boston area hotel for only $119 a night. I believe is the fee right now. So, and our weekend passes right now are only $45. We sell day tickets as well for a little less, and then we have children's pricing as well. Obviously, as I was saying previously, we have pretty much everything you are going to find at the big conventions packed in as well in 2 days. And obviously, we focus more on activities. So we have more game shows, the Idol Festival, the Masquerade, tabletop video games. Lots of panels and workshops, and of course our art department and our exhibitors and artist alley. So we have plenty to see and do, all at an affordable price. So I certainly hope people will check us out. We have Discord as well too, if you want to join our Discord community, and you can find all those links on our website. Um, and yeah, we're just, everybody who comes has a fun time, and usually likes to come back. So I certainly hope we can see some more people at our convention, because again, if we want to continue, this is going to be our year 7, 2023. So if we want to keep going, we definitely need to get some more people to come. So I hope some of your audience will join us this summer.
I hope so. And so anybody who's watching tonight live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, or any of our listeners that listen to us on the mobile apps after the fact, be sure to check them out. Because Angela, I know you said that you've been a couple of times, I believe.
Yep. It's a lot of fun. And then what happened was con weekend overlapped with family vacation out of the country.
That's what happens sometimes.
And life kind of happens. And unfortunately, I believe that the con is literally while I'm flying back from being out of the country this summer. So if I make an appearance at all, it would just be on Sunday, and even then, that is
barring the return flight, and if you're awake,
barring jet lag and flight status.
Yeah, unfortunately, that always happens. Like, there's whether we're the third weekend or the fourth weekend, there's always sometimes it doesn't quite line up for people. But if people are available, I hope they'll definitely check us out.
I have definitely made a point of posting about this con because I'm active in an Anime Boston Discord server, and we have a section for other conventions, and we've listed a bunch of them. And I made a point of promoting this one because for a lot of local people, it's a great small con, a great time to get together with a bunch of people and be social and have a good time and share the fandoms.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just because I can't go, I want to see the cons succeed. I want to see the events keep coming back.
And
yeah, no.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was going to say that's ultimately our goal, though, is because I know a lot of people, are you going to go to 3 days? Or are you going to get as big as Anime Boston? And actually, we'd prefer to stay like a small con. My ideal would be 2,000 to 3,000 people, in the greater Boston area, just so that we can stay that small, affordable option for the people that, want something that is later in the summer, or something not so overwhelming as, say, like a really big convention. So again, our ideal would be just to stay that nice small local con that everybody can go to and have a good time. So
Plus, also, if you're an anime fan and you want to go to a convention, but you get intimidated by an Anime Boston, a New York Comic Con, or Anime NYC, or Rhode Island Comic Con, some of the larger shows, it's great to have these smaller options to kind of dip your toes in the water. Okay, do I feel like this is for me? It's easier to get into and enjoy an anime con at something about the size of Pop Cult. Between 500 and a couple thousand people, you're not overwhelmed with so many people in a tight space, things of that nature, and it's a
It's al-
great way to get acclimated.
it's also further away from the city, so there's one less thing to be anxious about because
You don't have to deal with the traffic as much.
the city of Boston in and of itself is anxiety inducing.
Yes. No, actually we do like our new location because it is right off 95. So if you're okay with highway driving, and you have a car, um, or someone, to drive with you, getting on and off the highway right there and then being right there at the hotel is nice. And what's really great is that we're on a bus line. So we weren't before, but now you could actually take a bus and
And
get
there's a
right to the hotel.
and there is a commuter rail stop not that far away that you can get to the convention from.
Yes. So public transportation options are a lot better. Again, there's food options in the area. There's a market basket nearby, which is really great. So there are options. Obviously, there's food at the hotel as well, but it's a really great location, and it's a very nice hotel as well. And they've been very welcoming to us, so we really enjoyed working with them.
We want to thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight and talk about Pop Cult. It was a lot of fun learning about a convention that I've heard of but never had the opportunity to attend because, as Angela likes to say, life, universe, and everything else. And hopefully in the future, once I know my new work schedule and stuff, um, maybe be able to work something out where we could come out with a table, because I enjoy going to these conventions. And since switching to YouTube, and if you go back to the history, you'll see any convention we've had a table at, we live stream from to show
Mhm.
our audience what they can expect at these conventions. And they get a good eye view from our table with the live camera, the cosplayers. Everybody usually has a fun interaction with the people in the chat who will watch the live streams and compliment them and ask questions and stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to work something out in the future where Anime-Zing Radio can have a appearance at a future Pop Cult.
Yeah, I think that's totally doable. I mean, we get you some passes at least as well. And thank you for having me on. I'm glad you stopped by our table at Anime Boston, so we were able to do this with you. Obviously, I love talking about anime and my conventions, so
Oh yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. And then, of course, just reminisce and talk to fellow fans about just everything. It's great.
Yep.
For all of our viewers out there, next week we are going to be joined by Angela's friend Mike, who works at Crunchyroll. Not sure exactly how much he can talk about, but it's going to be fun to get a little bit of inside information from another industry leader in the anime community. And
Well, all he told me is that he would potentially have big news to share and would not say anything else.
Of course.
so that could be this could be fun. I am really excited about having a employee of Crunchyroll on the show. Our biggest guest so far, industry wise, was Bang Zoom. So being able to have a Crunchyroll staffer is going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to that next week. Of course, the weekend of June 25th, we will not have a live show at our normal time because we'll be at Rail City Fan Fest in St. Albans doing live streaming from the table. Be sure to tune in for the live stream there because we will have Christy Rothrock at the con with us. We were talking about the prices of the cost of bringing a guest. We have learned that this year by Anime-Zing Radio providing Christy Rothrock for Rail City. So that came out of my pocket from bonus money I got from my day job. But I'd already budgeted for that, so it's not hurting the wallet too badly. But a lot of good stuff still yet to come. And then going into July, you're going to see more of Angela and Darren and less of me due to the fact that I will be traveling to Georgia for 3 weeks for training and then starting the new job. And I will join the shows on Sunday nights when I can. Otherwise, I may do some midweek specials depending on my schedule. So until next week, when we have Mike from Crunchyroll joining us, I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there and keep watching anime. This has been Anime-Zing Radio right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Good night, everyone.